got a megachurch that's calling out overeating in a sermon to thousands of people. And where is this megachurch? Happens to be right here in our backyard.
Right here.
Both familiar with it.
You go, man.
Woo! They're calling it out, but I guess the question is, and we're going to play some clips from the actual Sunday sermon.
Yeah.
What a sermon it was. But the question we got to ask ourselves is this appropriate for a pastor, or in this case, a co-pastor, to be given this sermon? And I'm excited to discuss this because it was kind of hard-hitting.
I want to go into churches and help them do what they're doing. It's to me, it's really a missing piece in the church, and I'm sure some churches are going to choose to say, we're not going to go here.
Well,
we got plenty to do. We do not have to go here. And they can say, that's just not part of our vision. And I'm thinking, I think you're missing something if that's not part of your vision. Something very important, something that our culture needs, something that people in your congregation really need, and you're going to say, well, I don't want to go there. Props to Southland Christian Church in Lexington, Kentucky.
Without further ado, I say we played the first clip that you pulled out of this sermon. I actually was there on Sunday.
You were there, baby.
I heard it, and I was just like, wow, what a good Sunday to be at church. In my mind, I was like, Trainer Joe needs to be here.
I had a couple people reach out to me and say, hey, you need to hear this sermon.
It was refreshing, and then you ended up watching it. So play the first clip. What do you got?
All right, first clip. He's talking about some things he learned about Russell Crowe, and that he's a chain smoker, and that even while he was doing Cinderella Man, somebody was designated to the task of bringing him out a cigarette because he had boxing gloves on while he's boxing and training. He actually hired Angelo Dundee, I think is his name, to train him. He said, while going through all this, he's still smoking. So he's saying, he starts out saying, I'll let him say it. Ready? All right.
Russell Crowe does not have an information problem. There's something else going on. Likewise, with me and you, when it comes to the way we treat our bodies, some of you are like, oh no, I can't believe we've already taken communion. Can we go?
Russell Crowe does not have an information problem when it comes to him smoking a lot of cigarettes. He knows.
Yeah, he even said, I know. And in another interview, he said, I know how bad these are, but I can't quit. So he said that. I just can't quit.
And he was using that to segue into how many of us don't have an information problem when it comes to...
Same thing with food. And we'll see that in a second. He's going to tell us, same with food. We don't have an information problem. We know, and I'm going to speak to the next video. We know eat less, move more. Yeah. So what is the issue? And I think it's fascinating because you can approach weight loss from a secular worldview. You can approach weight loss from a Christian worldview.
Either can work.
And either can work because we've seen it, right? The evidence is that either can work. But it is, when you're looking at what he's saying, you can choose, am I going to really invite God into this and look at this as a spiritual journey? And I'm 100% yes. Do you have to? No, it's up to you. But I think you're missing something critical if you choose not to approach it as a spiritual journey.
Well, before we play the next clip, I must say I'm a little bit disappointed to hear he kind of burst my Russell Crowe bubble. I really like Russell Crowe, but then thinking, well, he's filming Gladiator and this Cinderella Man, and he's smoking a ton when he looks like this, perfect specimen that's out there in the trenches.
Yeah, well, with smoking, that's the thing. You didn't even know it.
Oh.
But if he was eating all the time, you'd probably known it. That's not to get off track. He could have kept from everybody.
Not to linger on Russell Crowe, but he has put on a lot of weight later in his career, so he probably will not be starring in Gladiator 2, which I saw that there's a preview for it. So maybe he's going to be the one training the Gladiator.
Maybe he'll be the Gladiator's dad.
You can nerd out all you want on the nuances of fitness and nutrition and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, at least here in America, we have a really simple problem. It goes like this. We eat more than we need, and we move less than we should. Can we all at least agree that that's true? Okay? We eat more than we need, we move less than we should. That's very simple, which means that the solution is equally simple. Eat less, move more.
Yes, that's simple, and that's pretty bold of him to say that.
Yeah, you get haters for saying that. Woo! Even though you need to watch this whole thing to get the full context. In all fairness to this co-pastor.
Can we link it below? Because you found this on YouTube,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
We'll link it below.
We'll link it. He said you can nerd out on the nuances. And I think
so
oftentimes,
many people nerding out on stuff that doesn't really make that big of a difference.
why do people do that? They nerd out on the nuances.
I got it. I got the perfect answer. They don't want to embrace the hunger.
Whoa.
The other stuff feels like they're, and maybe I'm being too insensitive here. It feels
Have I
like
brainwashed you, my son?
you have. It feels like they are making the sacrifices and learning about the micros and macros and carbs and protein and blah blah, and doing all of this other stuff. And at the end of the day, oftentimes when it comes to weight loss, I'm not saying that stuff doesn't have a place, but when it comes to weight loss, you're majoring on the minors.
And even exercise is a minor. That's because they showed another commercial we're not even going to share here of a young kid running who was big. He was big, and it was talking about how awesome, the greatness. And I'm like, probably what this kid needs that's going to bring about more greatness than him running when he's obese is
Trainer Joe in his life.
is stopping eating too much. No second helpings. Easy on the desserts. But like you were saying, I'll do anything if I can avoid embracing hunger. I don't want to do that piece of it. So I think that's true. And we'll get into what he's saying.
I love that
maybe a little different.
He was bold enough to just put it like that. Put it so simply about the eat less, move more.
As popular as it may be in Christian circles to pretend that God doesn't care about what we do with our bodies, we actually know, if we're honest, that that's a lie. And here's why. Because we have a Bible. And in that Bible, it says things like this: you are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies.
It's fascinating.
Well, he starts when he says a lot of people are misled when they believe that God doesn't care about our bodies. Does that remind you of anybody or any group?
You're going to have to spell it out for me.
Christians? I think that has permeated Christianity. In particular, I'm going to pick on somebody that maybe doesn't deserve it, but
choose your words, buddy.
But think potluck meals and so much revolving around meals at church services, at church functions.
You about to go off on pastors?
Baptists.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
So and bless the Baptists, all my Baptist friends,
bless
and I've got so much from Baptist churches, love them. But there does seem to be about eternities. Like just get people saved, get them in the kingdom. Who cares about our bodies? I mean, that kind of comes across.
Comment in the comments.
What do you
section.
think?
If you're watching and you're Baptist,
bodies don't matter. It's eternity that matters.
Is he onto something?
You tell me. Is that a little bit? And I'm not saying that's for all Baptists, but I am saying there is a sense and a feel, and it's not just the Baptists, but that we don't need to worry about the flesh. Mm-hmm. And I get that, and I think we can certainly be consumed with our flesh. We can be consumed with our bellies either way. And he mentions this: too big a belly or having a flat belly. You can make an idol out of that.
That's true. But I agree. It's permeated church culture. You're wanting to go off on the Baptist.
God doesn't care.
For some reason.
We shouldn't think about our bodies.
You're wanting to tear into the Baptist.
Well, I've talked to enough people that have said, I don't think it matters. I don't care. I don't care what my body looks like or how big it is. And I've talked to Christians that have said, I don't care, and I don't think we should care. I have had conversations with people, I don't think we should care. And that's something that he's really dealing with here. He's saying, no.
He wasn't making that
body.
up.
He talks about how we got to this place, not caring about our bodies. And he took it further than I learned some things about the importance of our body from him and the way he articulated it. I thought he did a good job, and it went beyond what I would have done, talking about the importance of our bodies.
Trainer Joe still has stuff to learn?
Oh, I did, but I learned it. So I'm back to 100%.
All right, next clip. Hey, be real though.
If you watch this whole commercial and you're not crying,
it was a commercial that he played in his sermon, and I would say a good amount of that congregation was tearing up.
What's about a 3-minute commercial, you think?
The premise is just very abbreviated. An older gentleman, he goes out to his garage and he's looking like doesn't have a lot of
strength
or movement in those bones. He's Yes, but then you see,
He lifts up that kettlebell and he gets to where he can do it over. That's kind of like a Rocky training.
yeah, day in, day out, he's getting up in the morning. His neighbors are looking at him like he's old and doesn't move well. He doesn't need to be going into
be in the house, just relaxing.
Why is he going into his cold garage and lifting a weight? That's not good. It's kind of the feel.
Up here and out here.
This isn't right. The neighbors are looking with judgment day after day, getting up early, doing it, and it culminates with that little video of him. He did it all so he could lift up his granddaughter
to put the star on the Christmas tree.
Star on the.
Very touching. And I tell you what, I think it's interesting because he said in the beginning of the sermon, I know some of you would like to leave now, essentially. And I've been in churches like that too, where I'm like, they didn't expect me here talking about this, but we did. And when you bring in something like this that's kind of a gripping thing, it's like, why are you sharing this? And he shared another commercial too. It's like, why are you sharing these? Well, in my sessions, I realize sometimes people are this close to getting it. And if they had a little bit of motivation, a little something more clicking for them, they would be on a totally new path that they just haven't gotten over to yet. And I think one of his motives here was, I've got to give people information and they need to be touched. Something needs to touch them. Something needs to be touched inside of them that says, yeah, I need to do this. This is important. And I think he was just kind of saying, I'm going to show this. Commercial's great. I'm going to show this other one in hopes that something is touched in them in this congregation. And these people decide this is important enough to make it a priority.
Well, before we get to the final clip, I just got to brag on you. My son, Dad and I, Trainer Joe and I work out together on Wednesday mornings, and this morning we had my son kind of down there running around with us, and I saw Dad lifting up my 2-year-old. He's getting a little heavy. What is he, getting close to 30 pounds?
I'm not sure.
And I thought of this commercial, and it's like, you're not just in the gym eating well, being fit for yourself. It's for your family. It's for my son to be able to have a grandfather who's very engaged and active with him and able to do physical stuff with him. So,
yes, and it's interesting. Thank you for that. I remember when my wife, your mama, was lifting up one of our grandchildren years ago, and she was struggling for one reason or the other. And I said, honey, in a very loving, gentle, caring,
no doubt
way, when Adler, our grandson, has children, maybe 20 years from now, you'll be, at that time, she would have been in her 70s. And I'm like, do you want to be able to lift up your great-grandchild in your 70s? And you can say, no, I don't care what happens when I'm a great-grandmother. 70s? You really don't think? And that's how this guy had to be pushing 80 in this commercial, and he's lifting up his grandchild. Of course, it doesn't need to be, that's all life's about. But what I have found is, no, but if you have this appropriate relationship with food and health, that's just not an issue. You're able to do things. It's when you neglected that. Yeah. And in this last clip, I think he's going to touch on some of the things that...
Play the clip. Play the clip.
This is not about lifting ourselves up. This is not about vanity. This is literally about lifting others up, and most of all, it's about lifting up the name of Jesus. Because we effectively have two deals on the table. We can worship God with our bodies, or we can worship our bodies.
We can worship God with our bodies, or we can worship our bodies. That is a statement.
Yes. What does he mean by that? Who's worshiping their bodies?
I'm not going to say it.
Well, I'm not. What do you think? Is he saying that? Because I think we can worship our bodies when we're extremely fit and conscientious about what we eat.
Go to either extreme.
But I think he's saying on both sides, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. Watch it. But I think he's saying you can worship your body when you care more about satisfying your body than you do about worshiping God.
And you talk about that a decent amount.
We miss our blessing when it's all about my body. I've got to give my body what it wants. Isn't that, in a sense, worshiping your body? When you're like, I got it, it's hungry, I got to feed it, I got to give it once, rather than what is right? What would God have me do in this situation? Because obviously there are times we choose not to eat because there's certain reasons for it. Well, isn't this just another reason for it? If you're not eating because you're fasting for spiritual reasons, if you're not eating because you have a colonoscopy tomorrow, if you're not eating because you're supposed to be fasting before your blood work or something like that, those are reasons not to eat. Are there other reasons not to eat that you don't want to accept? Should you say, you know what, I'm not going to eat because I want to honor God in my decisions? And I would say, to me, that's part of worshiping my body is give it whatever. And we don't just do that with food.
Well, I was going to say,
But-
it spans so many different areas, and it reminds me of the Bible telling us to crucify our flesh, the carnal nature and these desires that try to rule over us. Paul says, I will not be mastered by anything, and Christians are so often like, I'm not going to be mastered by sex. I'm not going to be mastered by whatever, what are the big things? Money, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, things.
But sadly, it appears, at least because we
Materialism.
right, but then when you get to see, it kind of appears that at least on some level, food has an unhealthy control of you because you're obese. And it's a very sobering thing. And so then to hear this guy say that many of us are a slave to this. What was a specific quote? Do you remember?
Worship our bodies or worship God.
Yeah, we worship God or worship ourselves, kind of like. It's a very sobering thing that there does seem to be a disconnect among many Christians. We're crucifying our flesh over here, but we're obese. So just the fact that he was willing to go there, and he had a number of kind of like one-liners or driving the points home or being bold in certain statements he made, that I was just like, thank you, Megachurch pastor.
I know. And at the end, he said, this is not about vanity, and it's not about lifting ourselves up. And I think that's good, because it's certainly we can be vain and we can lift ourselves up and look at me, look at what I'm achieving, look what I'm doing. He said it's about lifting up others and lifting up Jesus. And I think that's important, because I remember somebody close to me was on a mission trip, and they said, we were trying to do all these things, and there was somebody there that couldn't keep up. Okay, we get that. It's not a huge thing necessarily, but if it's because of decisions we make that we can't keep up, we can't be as productive on a mission trip, we can't take care of ourselves when we're 60, 70, or 80, others need to step in and do that. He's saying you can serve others better if you don't just allow your body to be neglected. Don't neglect it, and it's being neglected when we just give it whatever it wants. That is neglect, right? That's not self-care. No, that's neglect.
Yeah.
And so he's talking about that, and honoring the Lord and honoring others in the way that we nurture, take care of, or fail to our bodies.
Love it. I mean, I think both you and I need to give kudos to Southland, this huge church. Because to be real, and I've been in a lot of churches spanning very large and very small, I don't think I've heard this church in this teaching in the small churches I've been in. I feel like the small churches are scared of it. And so to get this from a huge church, the biggest church in Lexington and maybe in Kentucky, I gotta applaud them.
And I almost feel bad, because I know we get enough pushback. We get a lot of love, but we get enough pushback to where I'm thinking they may get some more pushback because we are enjoying it. We're praising it. So I'm afraid they're going to get people that don't like us are going to go over there and say, this is not right.
Hey,
but
they're ready for it.
However,
they're ready for it.
I will say I'm grateful. I can't think of anything that they said in this message that I thought was inappropriate.
The Trainer Joe YouTube audience.
Now, there may have been, but I didn't pick it up.
The Trainer Joe YouTube audience, I'm confident from reading comments in your past videos that they're going to really appreciate this sermon.
Yeah.
Love it. Guys, comment below. Now, the floor is yours. Based off of those clips, or if you go back and watch, the link will be below in the description for the full sermon. What are your thoughts on this church? Because again, we were going to kind of say, like, by the title and thumbnail, was this appropriate for a church to hit this topic so head on? Obviously, you see Trainer Joe and I applaud it. What are your thoughts on it? Comment below. Keep the conversation going. All right, guys. Be blessed. Trainer Joe, train your brain.
And transform your body.